The city buzzed with life outside the windows of Café Luminoso, but inside the evening rush was finally winding down. Maya Rodriguez wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, careful not to let her boss see the moment of exhaustion. 10 hours on her feet, and she still had closing duties ahead. The small Italian cafe where she worked wasn't fancy, but it was popular with the after-work crowd who came for reasonably priced pasta and a decent wine list. Table 7 needs their check, called Deb, the other server working tonight. She was older than Maya by at least 20 years and moved with the efficient, unhurried pace of someone who had made peace with this job being her life. Maya nodded and pulled the check from her apron pocket. As she set it down on the table, she noticed the way the evening light caught the woman's earrings, sending tiny rainbow reflections across the white tablecloth. For a split second, her fingers itched to capture that moment. The tired businesswoman, the half-empty wine glass, those dancing lights from her jewelry. "Anything else I can get you?" Maya asked, pushing the thought away. The cafe cleared out by 11, and by midnight, Maya had finished wiping down the last table. Her shoulders ached from carrying heavy trays, and her feet pulsed with pain inside her black non-slip shoes. "Go home, kid," said Pete, the manager, as he counted out her tips. "You look dead on your feet." Maya nodded gratefully, tucking the cash into her wallet. The money wasn't great, but tonight had been decent, enough to cover her phone bill and maybe put a little toward rent. She changed out of her sauce-splattered uniform in the tiny staff bathroom and headed out into the night. Her apartment was 15 blocks away, but Maya always walked rather than spending money on the bus. The city felt different at this hour, quieter, more honest somehow. She passed closed storefronts, late-night convenience stores with their harsh fluorescent lighting, and the occasional group of laughing people spilling out of bars. The lock on her apartment building's front door stuck as usual, requiring a specific wiggle and push technique Maya had perfected months ago. The elevator was perpetually out of order, so she climbed 4 flights of stairs, her legs protesting each step. Her studio apartment was small, just 300 square feet, but the windows were large, and rent was somehow still within reach, even in this expensive city. Maya dropped her bag by the door and kicked off her shoes, sighing as her toes spread on the cool floor. The freedom of bare feet after a shift was a simple pleasure she never took for granted. Most people would have headed straight to bed after such a long day. Maya glanced at the clock, 12:43 a.m., and knew she should sleep. Her morning shift started at 10, but her mind felt electric, too wired to rest despite her body's exhaustion. She walked to the corner of her apartment that served as her studio, really just a second-hand desk positioned to catch the best light during the day, topped with a collection of pencils, pastels, and paints she'd accumulated over years of birthday presents to herself. Maya sat down and pulled out her sketchbook. It wasn't anything special, just a hardbound book with thick pages that could handle her various mediums without buckling. She flipped past dozens of filled pages, faces of regular customers, the view from the cafe windows during different seasons, hands holding coffee cups, a study of Deb's expression when she thought no one was watching. Finding a blank page, Maya closed her eyes for a moment. The woman from table 7 came back to her, those earrings, the tired slump of her shoulders, the way she'd stared into her wine glass as if looking for answers. Maya's pencil moved across the paper, tentative at first, then with growing confidence. She didn't need a reference. Her brain had photographed the moment. First the basic shapes, the curve of the woman's neck, the drape of her blouse, the angle of her arm on the table. Then details emerged, strands of hair escaping a once neat bun, fingernails with slightly chipped polish, the faint frown lines between her eyebrows. Time slipped away as Maya worked. She added color sparingly, just enough to capture those dancing rainbow lights from the earrings, the deep burgundy of the wine. The rest she left in shades of gray, emphasizing the weariness that had radiated from the woman. Maya didn't realize she was crying until a tear splashed onto the corner of the page. She blinked, surprised. Something about this stranger had touched something in her. The quiet dignity and exhaustion, perhaps, or the recognition of another soul carrying unnamed burdens. She signed her name in the bottom corner and checked the time. Almost 3 in the morning. She'd lost over 2 hours to her art, as she often did. Sleep would be scarce tonight, but Maya felt a sense of peace that hadn't been there when she'd walked through her door. Rising from her desk, Maya took the finished sketch and pinned it to her wall. It joined dozens of others. Her paper gallery, she called it. The walls of her tiny apartment had become a patchwork of moments, emotions, and faces that had caught her attention during her hours serving tables. In the bathroom, she washed her face and hands, scrubbing away pencil smudges and the lingering smell of garlic from the cafe. Her reflection looked tired with dark circles under her eyes, but there was something alive in her gaze that hadn't been dimmed by the long day. One day, she whispered to herself, a ritual she'd practiced for years. Not a specific promise or plan, just an acknowledgement that her current life, the double shifts, the aching feet, the counting of tips to make rent, wasn't the whole story. Just a chapter. Maya fell into bed without bothering to change out of her t-shirt and leggings. Sleep came quickly this time, her mind quieted by the act of creation. Morning arrived with harsh sunlight and the blaring of her alarm. 6 hours until her next shift. Maya groaned and rolled over, tempted to hit snooze, but rent was due next week and she couldn't afford to lose hours. She made instant coffee and toast, eating while standing at her kitchen counter. Her gaze drifted to last night's sketch, now bathed in morning light. It looked different somehow, better than she'd thought. Maybe her best work yet. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Pete. "Need you to come in an hour early." Lisa called out sick. She sighed, calculating the extra hour against the lost sleep. Every dollar counted, but her body protested. After a moment's hesitation, she texted back, "Okay, be there at 9. The morning routine was hurried now, shower, hair pulled back into a practical ponytail, uniform still slightly damp from yesterday's wash in the sink. No time for makeup beyond a swipe of tinted lip balm. Before leaving, Maya tucked a small sketchbook into her apron pocket, a habit that had gotten her in trouble more than once. Pete had caught her sketching during a lull last month and threatened to dock her pay if it happened again. "This is a restaurant, not an art studio," he'd said, his face reddening in the way that made customers lower their voices and servers scurry faster. Maya had apologized and promised it wouldn't happen again. She'd kept that promise mostly. Now she only sketched during official breaks, or on napkins that she could quickly tuck away. The cafe was already busy when she arrived, filled with the morning crowd of remote workers nursing lattes and tapping on laptops. Lisa's absence meant Maya had to cover twice as many tables, running coffee refills and breakfast orders with barely a moment to breathe. By noon, the crowd changed. Business lunches replaced morning coffees. Maya recognized a publisher who came in weekly, always ordered the same salad and tipped exactly 15%. Today he sat with someone new, a woman with striking gray hair and a scarf that reminded Maya of watercolors. "I'll be your server today," Maya said, setting down water glasses. "Our special is mushroom risotto with truffle oil." The publisher barely looked up from his phone, but the woman smiled at Maya, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, not the practiced politeness Maya usually received. "Risotto sounds perfect," the woman said. "And maybe you have a recommendation for wine?" As Maya described the house white that would pair well with the dish, she noticed the woman studying her face with unusual interest. It wasn't the entitled stare of customers who saw servers as machines rather than people. It was something else. Curiosity, perhaps. The lunch rush blurred into afternoon, and when Maya finally got her break at 3 o'clock, she slipped out the back door to the small alley behind the cafe. Leaning against the brick wall, she pulled out her hidden sketchbook and a pencil. The gray-haired woman's face appeared on the paper. Those interested eyes, the unusual scarf, the way she'd actually looked at Maya as a person. The sketch was quick but captured something essential about her presence. "What are you drawing?" Maya jumped, nearly dropping her sketchbook. Pete stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "Break's over," he said, his tone making it clear he remembered their previous conversation about sketching at work. "Sorry, I was just—" "Save it." He held the door open, waiting for her to come back inside. "Tables need clearing." Maya tucked the sketchbook away, heart pounding. She couldn't afford to lose this job, not with rent due and her art supplies running low. For the rest of her shift, she kept her head down and moved efficiently between tables. No more stealing glances at interesting faces. No more mentally composing sketches of hands wrapped around coffee mugs. Just orders taken, food delivered, tables cleared, tips collected. By the time she clocked out at 7, Maya felt hollow, as if something essential had been scooped out of her. She changed quickly and left without saying goodbye to anyone. Tonight, she splurged on a bus ride home, too tired to face the long walk. Sitting by the window, watching the city scroll by, Maya wondered how long she could continue like this, working jobs that drained her so she could afford to live in a tiny apartment where she created art no one ever saw. One day, she whispered again, her ritual promise. But tonight the words felt empty, worn thin from years of repetition without action. The bus stopped a block from her building. As Maya walked the short distance home, she passed a small gallery with lights still on despite the hour. Through the window she could see paintings hanging on white walls, people with wine glasses moving between them. Maya paused, watching. From outside it seemed like another world, one where art was valued, where creativity wasn't something to hide during break times. Someday, she thought. Not just one day, but a specific someday. For now, though, there was her apartment waiting, with its paper-covered walls and the promise of a few quiet hours before sleep claimed her again. Tonight she would create something just for herself, a small act of defiance against a day that had tried to grind the art out of her. And tomorrow, she would return to serving tables, watching faces, and stealing moments to capture the world as only she saw it. 3 months had passed since Maya pinned that sketch of the tired businesswoman to her wall. Spring had given way to summer, and the cafe had become busier with tourists who wandered in seeking refuge from the heat. The air conditioning in the restaurant worked overtime, creating a pleasant contrast to the sweltering streets outside. Maya balanced 4 plates along her arm as she approached table 12. It was a skill she'd perfected over the years, the ability to carry impossible loads without dropping anything. Sometimes she wondered if this talent would ever be useful outside of restaurant work. "Chicken Parmigiana," she announced, setting down the first plate in front of a man in a blue button-down shirt. "Fettuccine Alfredo, Caesar salad with dressing on the side, and the daily special." The woman who had ordered the special, a summer risotto with fresh vegetables, looked up at Maya with a smile. "This looks wonderful," she said. Maya noticed the woman's hands first. They were slender with long fingers, stained with what looked like paint or ink around the nails. An artist's hands. Maya recognized the signs because her own hands often bore similar marks. "Can I get you anything else?" Maya asked, trying not to stare at the colorful smudges. "Just some more water when you have a chance," the woman replied. She wore a simple linen dress and had her gray hair pulled back in a loose bun. Something about her seemed different from the usual customers, a calmness perhaps, or a way of looking at things more carefully. Maya nodded and moved on to her next table, but throughout her shift, she found herself glancing back at the woman with the painted fingertips. The woman ate slowly, occasionally making notes in a small leather-bound book beside her plate. She wasn't working on a laptop like most solo diners. Instead, she seemed to be truly present, enjoying her meal without distraction. When the lunch rush finally eased, Maya brought the check to the woman's table. "Was everything all right?" Maya asked, the standard question she asked dozens of times each day. "It was perfect," the woman said. Then, gesturing to the notepad Maya kept in her apron, the one she sometimes used for taking complicated orders, she asked, "Do you always carry that with you?" Maya touched the small pad self-consciously. "For orders," she explained. "Sometimes people want their food prepared in specific ways." The woman nodded, but her eyes held a knowing look. "I saw you sketching earlier. During your break." Heat rushed to Maya's face. Had the woman seen her through the window? Maya sometimes used her short breaks to sit at an empty outdoor table and quickly capture the people walking by. "I'm sorry if that seemed strange," Maya began. The woman laughed, a warm sound that held no judgment. "Strange? Not at all. I was impressed. You have a good eye. You catch moments most people miss." Maya shifted uncomfortably, unused to discussing her art with strangers. Most customers saw her only as the person who brought their food. "I'm Elaine," the woman said, extending her hand. The colorful stains on her fingers were definitely paint. "I own a small gallery about 10 blocks from here." "Maya," she replied, shaking Elaine's hand briefly before remembering Pete's rules about maintaining professional distance with customers. "Do you have more work like what I saw you sketching?" Elaine asked. "You captured that couple arguing silently across their lunch in just a few strokes. It was quite remarkable." Maya felt her chest tighten. Someone had noticed. Someone who owned a gallery had noticed her work. The daydream that played in her mind during long shifts suddenly seemed to be taking physical form across the table. I sketch a lot, Maya admitted, mostly people from the cafe, scenes from around the neighborhood. She hesitated, then added, "My apartment walls are covered with them." Elaine reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. Winter Gallery, it read, with an address in the Arts District and Elaine's name. Elaine Winters, director. "I'm putting together a show of new artists," Elaine said, placing the card on the table. "People who create in the margins of their lives. I'd love to see your work." Maya stared at the card, afraid to pick it up as if it might disappear when touched. "I couldn't possibly," she began. "Just think about it," Elaine interrupted gently. "You can come by the gallery anytime. We're open Tuesday through Saturday, noon to 8. Maya nodded, finally taking the card and slipping it into her apron pocket. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Elaine paid her bill, leaving a generous tip, and departed with a warm smile. Maya watched her go, the business card feeling like a small ember burning against her leg through the fabric of her apron. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Maya moved through her tasks automatically, her mind elsewhere. She kept touching her pocket, making sure the card was still there. By the time she clocked out, she had decided to visit the gallery. Maybe not immediately, but soon. "You seem distracted today," commented Lou, the bartender, as Maya collected her last drink order of the night. "Just tired," she lied. Maya walked home that evening instead of taking the bus, needing time to think. The summer night was warm, the streets still lively with people enjoying the pleasant weather. She passed the route she would need to take to find Winter Gallery, tempted to go there now, but it would surely be closed at this hour. At home, Maya stood in the center of her small apartment, seeing it suddenly through a stranger's eyes. The walls were indeed covered with her work, sketches, paintings, mixed media pieces, arranged in a haphazard gallery of her own making. Some were framed in second-hand frames she'd found at thrift stores. Others were simply tacked to the wall with pushpins. Would someone like Elaine Winters find value in these pieces? Or had the gallery owner simply been kind to a waitress with a hobby? Maya pulled out her phone and searched for Winter Gallery. The website was simple but elegant, showing past exhibitions of both established and emerging artists. The gallery appeared legitimate and well-respected, if small. Elaine's biography noted that she had previously worked as a curator at the city's Modern Art Museum before opening her own space, focused on discovering new talent. Sleep evaded Maya that night. She tossed and turned, alternating between excitement and doubt. By morning, she had made a decision. She would visit the gallery on her next day off in 3 days' time. Those days crawled by. Maya continued serving tables, taking orders, clearing dishes. But everything felt temporary now, as if she were merely passing through a space she had previously inhabited fully. She found herself studying the customers more intently than ever, wondering if she could capture something essential about them that might impress someone like Elaine Winters. On Tuesday morning, Maya woke early despite having closed the cafe the night before. She showered, dressed carefully in her best jeans and a simple blue blouse, then faced her wall of artwork. Which pieces should she take? She couldn't bring everything. After an hour of agonizing selection, Maya chose 5 pieces that she felt best represented her work. The tired businesswoman with the rainbow-reflecting earrings, a study of Lou's hands mixing a complicated cocktail, the view from the cafe at dawn, when the city seemed to hold its breath before beginning another day, a portrait of her elderly neighbor feeding pigeons in the park, and a self-portrait she'd done by setting up her phone's camera on timer mode. She placed the pieces carefully in a large portfolio case she'd bought years ago during a brief period of optimism about her art. The case had gathered dust under her bed since then, but it still served its purpose. The walk to Winter Gallery took 30 minutes. Maya rehearsed what she would say, how she would present her work without seeming either too confident or too self-deprecating. By the time she reached the gallery's understated storefront, her palms were sweating. A small sign in the window read, "Open." Maya took a deep breath and pushed the door, setting off a gentle chime. The gallery space was larger than it had appeared from outside, with high ceilings and clean white walls. A few visitors wandered among the current exhibition, abstract sculptures made of found objects according to the brochure near the entrance. Maya didn't see Elaine immediately and felt a mixture of relief and disappointment. Perhaps it would be better to leave her contact information with someone else and come back another time. You came. Maya turned to see Elaine emerging from a door at the back of the gallery. She wore a similar linen dress to the one she'd had on at the cafe, but in a different color. Her smile was warm and genuine. I wasn't sure you would, Elaine continued, approaching Maya. Her eyes fell on the portfolio case. And you brought your work, wonderful. Maya nodded, suddenly unable to find words. This moment, walking into a real gallery with her art, had lived in her imagination for so long that experiencing it in reality felt disorienting. Come to my office, Elaine said, gesturing to the door she had come through. We can look at your pieces there. The office was small but comfortable, with a large desk, a couple of chairs, and walls covered with framed exhibition posters from shows the gallery had hosted. Elaine cleared a space on the desk. May I? She asked, indicating Maya's portfolio. Maya nodded, carefully unzipping the case and removing her selected works. She placed them on the desk one by one, holding her breath as Elaine studied each piece in silence. The gallery owner took her time, occasionally picking up a piece to examine it more closely. She didn't speak until she had seen all 5. You have a remarkable eye for the humanity in ordinary moments, Elaine said finally. These aren't just good sketches, they tell stories. Especially this one. She tapped the portrait of the tired businesswoman. There's so much life in her expression. Maya felt something unclench inside her chest, a tension she hadn't realized she'd been carrying for years. To be seen, to have her work truly seen and appreciated was overwhelming. Thank you, she managed to say. I meant what I said about the exhibition, Elaine continued. It opens in 6 weeks. I'd like to include 3 of your pieces if you're willing. Maya blinked rapidly, fighting back unexpected tears. I would be honored, she said. Good. Elaine smiled. We should talk about presentation, pricing, and what else you might create between now and then. Do you have time for coffee? As they left the gallery together, walking to a nearby cafe that wasn't the one where Maya worked, she felt as though she were stepping into a different life, one that had always been waiting for her. Just around the corner from the path she'd been traveling, Maya stared at the work schedule pinned to the wall of the cafe's break room. Pete had given her only 3 shifts for the coming week, half of what she normally worked. Her stomach tightened. With rent due in 2 weeks and the electric bill already past due, she couldn't afford the cut in hours. Pete, can I talk to you? She asked, finding him in his tiny office going over inventory sheets. He glanced up, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. If it's about the schedule, I can't give you more hours. Business is slow and I've got too many servers as it is. I need those hours, Maya said, trying to keep the desperation out of her voice. I've been here 3 years. I've never called in sick, never been late. Pete sighed, removing his glasses to rub his eyes. Look, Maya, you're a good worker when you're focused. But lately, your head's not here. I've seen you spacing out, taking longer with customers. Deb told me you forgot an entire table's order last week. Maya winced. It was true. She'd been distracted, her mind on the upcoming exhibition. Elaine had selected 3 of her pieces to show, and Maya had been working on a 4th, a larger, more ambitious painting based on one of her cafe sketches. The hours she usually spent sleeping were now devoted to painting. I can do better, she promised. I'm sure you can, but right now this is what I have for you. Pete put his glasses back on, returning to his paperwork. The conversation was over. Maya walked home that evening calculating numbers in her head. Even with her reduced hours, she'd be short on rent by about $100. She could ask her neighbor to spot her the money, but he'd already loaned her cash twice this year. At home, Maya stood before her newest painting, a large canvas showing the cafe at its busiest moment, a symphony of light and movement and human connection. It was nearly finished, and Maya had to admit, the best thing she'd ever created. Elaine had been excited when Maya described it over coffee last week. That's exactly the kind of piece the show needs, Elaine had said. Something that showcases your unique perspective. No one sees these everyday moments the way you do. Maya picked up her brush, intending to work on the painting's background, but her hands were shaking with anxiety about money. After several minutes of unsuccessful attempts to focus, she set the brush down. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lou, the bartender from the cafe. Heard about your hours getting cut. That sucks. Bar next door needs weekend help if you're interested. Pays better than cafe work, Maya considered it. Working at a bar would mean late nights, even later than the cafe. When would she paint? The exhibition was only 5 weeks away now, and Elaine had suggested Maya might want to have 5 or 6 pieces ready in case they sold. Well and needed replacements. The thought of her work selling still seemed like fantasy to Maya. Elaine had discussed pricing with her last week, suggesting figures that made Maya's eyes widen. People will pay that for my sketches? She had asked in disbelief. Elaine had smiled. For your art, she corrected. And yes, this is what emerging artists with your level of talent command. Maya texted Lou back. Thanks for thinking of me. Let me see how this week goes first. She turned back to her painting, determination replacing anxiety. She had waited years for this chance. She wouldn't let money problems derail it now. Somehow she would make it work. The next morning, Maya woke to a call from Pete. Can you come in today? Deb's sick and we're short-handed. Of course, Maya said, relief flooding through her. An extra shift meant extra money. The cafe was unusually busy for a Wednesday. Maya moved between tables efficiently, taking orders, delivering food, refilling drinks. She forced herself to stay present, to focus only on the task at hand rather than the painting waiting for her at home. During a rare quiet moment, she noticed a customer sketching on a napkin, an older man with wild white hair who came in every few weeks. Maya had always been curious about his drawings but had never had the courage to ask about them. Can I get you a refill? She asked, approaching his table. The man looked up, his blue eyes sharp beneath bushy eyebrows. He nodded, pushing his empty coffee cup toward her. As she poured, she glanced at his napkin sketch, a detailed drawing of the cafe's front window, complete with the intricate pattern of the wrought iron frame. That's beautiful, she said before she could stop herself. The man looked surprised, then pleased. Thank you. Just keeping my hands busy. He gestured to the napkin. Would you like it? Maya hesitated, then nodded. I would, actually. He signed the corner with a flourish and handed it to her. I'm Hank, he said. Been coming here for years watching you run yourself ragged. Maya, she replied with a small smile. And it's not so bad. I like the work most days. Hank nodded toward the pocket where she'd tucked his napkin sketch. You're an artist too, aren't you? I can always tell. Trying to be, Maya admitted. No, Hank shook his head firmly. No trying. You either are or you aren't, and you are. He tapped his temple. I can see it in how you look at things, how you notice details others miss. A call from another table pulled Maya away before she could respond, but Hank's words stayed with her throughout her shift. You either are or you aren't. Was it really that simple? That night, Maya worked on her painting until 3 a.m, adding the final details that brought the cafe scene to life. When she finally stepped back to look at the finished piece, exhaustion gave way to a strange, quiet joy. This was good work, perhaps the best she'd ever done. The next day was Maya's day off from the cafe, but she'd agreed to meet Elaine at the gallery to discuss final preparations for the exhibition. She carefully wrapped her finished painting and took the bus to the arts district, too tired to walk the distance. Elaine's eyes widened when Maya unwrapped the canvas. Oh, Maya, she breathed. This is extraordinary. Maya felt herself flush with pride. You really think so? I know so. Elaine studied the painting carefully. The way you've captured the light, the movement, the feeling of the space. It's remarkable. This will be the centerpiece of your collection. They spent the next hour discussing practical matters, framing options, artist statements, pricing. Maya tried to focus, but exhaustion made it difficult to concentrate. You look dead on your feet, Elaine commented as they finished. Are you getting any sleep? Maya gave a tired laugh. Not much. I'm trying to balance painting with work and there aren't enough hours in the day. Elaine frowned. Have you considered reducing your hours at the cafe? Just temporarily while you prepare for the exhibition? I can't afford to, Maya admitted. Actually, my manager cut my hours already and I'm worried about making rent. Elaine was quiet for a moment, studying Maya with thoughtful eyes. What if I advanced you some money against your sales? It's not standard practice, but I'm confident your work will sell well. Maya stared at her, stunned by the offer. I couldn't ask you to do that. You didn't ask. I offered, Elaine smiled. Consider it an investment in your career. Artists need time to create, Maya. You can't pour from an empty cup. The idea was tempting, so tempting. To have time, real time, to paint without exhaustion clouding her mind. To focus on preparing for the exhibition without worrying about making rent. I don't know, Maya said hesitantly. What if nothing sells? How would I pay you back? We'll cross that bridge if we come to it, Elaine said with a wave of her hand. But I've been doing this for 20 years and I know what sells. Your work will find buyers. Maya bit her lip, considering. It was a risk, certainly. But wasn't art always a risk? Wasn't showing her work to strangers a risk? Wasn't allowing herself to hope for a different life a risk? I'll think about it, she promised. On her way home, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Pete. Need to talk to you about your schedule. Come see me before your shift tomorrow. Her heart sank. More cuts to her hours? Or worse, was he letting her go entirely? The cafe had been struggling lately. Everyone knew it. Maybe Pete had decided he could manage with one fewer server. That night, Maya couldn't paint. Anxiety about money and work crowded out creativity. She sat at her desk, staring at a blank page in her sketchbook, pencil poised but motionless. Hank's words came back to her. You either are or you aren't. If she was truly an artist, didn't she owe it to herself to commit fully, to take the leap that might allow her art to flourish? Maya thought of all the years she'd spent serving tables, watching other people's lives unfold across the cafe, while her own dreams waited in the margins of her days. She thought of Elaine's faith in her work, of the opportunity before her that might never come again. By morning, Maya had made her decision. She arrived at the cafe early, finding Pete setting up the coffee station for the day. You wanted to see me? She asked, her heart racing. Pete nodded, his expression serious. Look, Maya, I know you need the hours, but I have to be honest with you. The cafe isn't doing well. I'm having to cut everyone's schedule, not just yours. Maya took a deep breath. Actually, Pete, I've been meaning to talk to you too. She faltered, then straightened her shoulders. I need to give my notice. Pete looked genuinely surprised. What? I thought you needed this job. I do. I did. Maya smiled, feeling a strange lightness spread through her chest as she spoke the words aloud. But I've been given an opportunity to show my artwork in a gallery. A real gallery. And I need to focus on that right now. Pete's expression softened. I had no idea you were an artist. Maya thought of all the times she'd been scolded for sketching during lulls, all the napkin drawings she'd hidden in her apron pockets. It's not something I talked about much here. Well, good for you, Pete said, and he seemed to mean it. How much notice are you giving? Maya hesitated. The responsible thing would be to offer 2 weeks. But the exhibition was approaching quickly and every day counted. Could I finish out this week? She asked. I know it's not much notice. It's fine, Pete interrupted. To be honest, I was going to have to cut more hours anyway. This saves me from having to do that. Relief and fear and excitement all mingled in Maya's chest as she turned in her apron at the end of her final shift 3 days later. Deb hugged her goodbye. Lou promised to come to the exhibition opening. Even Pete wished her well, pressing an envelope into her hand that contained her final paycheck plus a small bonus. For your art supplies, he said gruffly. Knock 'em dead. As Maya walked out of the cafe for the last time as an employee, she felt as though she were stepping off a cliff, unsure if she would fall or fly. But for the first time in years, the fear felt like freedom. The gallery buzzed with voices and the gentle clink of wine glasses. Maya stood in a corner, watching people move from piece to piece of her artwork. She wore a simple black dress she'd found at a thrift store last week, her one concession to the formality of the occasion. Her hands kept fidgeting with the small information cards Elaine had printed for each piece, straightening them even though they didn't need straightening. Stop hiding, Elaine whispered, appearing at her side with 2 glasses of wine. She handed one to Maya. This is your night. Go talk to people. They're here to see your work and meet the artist. Maya took a sip of wine to steady her nerves. What do I even say to them? Whatever you want, Elaine smiled. Talk about your inspiration, your process, or just thank them for coming. You don't need to be profound. Just be present. The 6 weeks since Maya had quit her job at the cafe had passed in a blur of creativity and anxiety. With the advance from Elaine, she'd been able to pay her rent and buy supplies to complete 3 additional pieces for the exhibition. She'd worked from sunrise until late into the night, pushing herself to capture the visions in her head before they faded. Now, Seeing her work displayed on the clean white walls of Winter Gallery, properly framed, professionally lit, felt surreal. These pieces that had lived in her tiny apartment, these moments she'd stolen from her busy days, now commanded attention from strangers who moved around the room with glasses of wine, studying her vision of the world. Maya took a deep breath and stepped away from the wall. A middle-aged couple stood before her largest painting, the cafe scene she had poured so many late nights into completing. "Do you see how she's captured the light?" the woman was saying to her companion. "It's almost like time is suspended in that moment." Maya felt a rush of pride. That was exactly what she'd been trying to achieve, a sense of time pausing in the midst of motion. "Thank you," Maya said, approaching them. "That's very kind of you to say." The couple turned, surprised. "Are you the artist?" the woman asked, her eyes brightening. Maya nodded. "Maya Rodriguez. Your work is extraordinary," the man said. "The way you observe everyday life, it's both familiar and revelatory. Like seeing something for the 100th time but noticing it for the first time." "That's exactly what I hope to accomplish," Maya said, finding her voice growing stronger. "There's so much beauty in ordinary moments, but we're often too busy to see it." "Do you work from photographs?" the woman asked. Maya shook her head. "Mostly from memory and quick sketches. I worked as a server for years, so many of these scenes come from moments I observed while waiting tables." "Fascinating," the man murmured. He glanced at the red dot that Elaine had placed beside the painting's information card, indicating it had been sold. "I see this one is already taken. Are you working on similar pieces?" "I am," Maya said, surprised by the question. "I'm exploring a whole series based on public spaces where people connect." The man pulled out a business card and handed it to Maya. "I own a small hotel downtown. We showcase local artists in our lobby and guest rooms. I'd be interested in commissioning something from you if you're open to that." Maya stared at the card, then back at the man. Yes, I'd be very interested." "Thank you." As the couple moved on to view her other pieces, Maya felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Lou, the bartender from the cafe, grinning at her. "Look at you," he said, gesturing to the room. "From serving drinks to having your own art show. I always knew you were too good for that cafe." Maya laughed. "I wouldn't have these pieces without that cafe. It gave me so much to observe, so many stories to tell." "Well, we miss you," Lou admitted. "Pete's had to hire 2 people to replace you, and neither of them is as good." "Speaking of Pete," Maya began, but Lou was already pointing toward the entrance, where Pete was awkwardly making his way into the gallery, looking out of place in his one good shirt. "He closed the cafe early so we could all come," Lou explained. "Deb's here too, and a couple of the regulars." Warmth spread through Maya's chest at the sight of her former colleagues coming to support her. She excused herself from Lou and made her way to Pete, who was staring at one of her smaller pieces, a study of his hands counting money at the end of a long day. "You came," Maya said. Genuinely touched, Pete turned, his expression softening when he saw her. "Wouldn't have missed it. Though I feel like I'm crashing a fancy party." "Nonsense," Maya said. "You belong here as much as anyone. In fact, you're part of the exhibit." She nodded toward the painting he'd been viewing. Pete leaned closer to read the small card beside the piece. "Counting the day's blessings," he read aloud. "Is that what you think I'm doing when I count the register?" Maya smiled. "Isn't it? Each dollar represents someone who chose our cafe, who came in for nourishment or comfort or connection. That's a blessing in its way." Pete was quiet for a moment, studying the painting with new eyes. "I never thought of it like that," he admitted finally. "You see things differently than most people, Maya. It's a gift." Before Maya could respond, Elaine clinked a glass to call for attention. The room quieted as all eyes turned to the gallery owner. "Thank you all for coming tonight to the opening of Unnoticed Moments, featuring the work of Maya Rodriguez," Elaine began. "When I first saw Maya's sketches, I was struck by her ability to find profound humanity in the most ordinary scenes. As you can see from the red dots beside many of these pieces, I'm not the only one who recognizes this talent." A murmur went through the crowd as people noted how many of the pieces had already sold. Maya herself was shocked. She had been so busy greeting people that she hadn't noticed Elaine placing more red dots throughout the evening. Maya brings to her work years of quiet observation. From her position as a server in one of our local cafes, Elaine continued. She watched life unfold before her day after day, and rather than becoming numb to it, she saw it more clearly with each passing moment. Her work reminds us to pay attention, to notice the beauty in our everyday encounters. Maya felt tears pricking at her eyes as Elaine spoke. For so many years she had felt invisible while serving others. Now her vision, her way of seeing the world, was being celebrated. "I'm pleased to announce that all but 2 pieces in this exhibition have sold," Elaine said, drawing gasps from the crowd. "And I've already had inquiries about commissioning additional work. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are witnessing the beginning of a remarkable artistic career." The room erupted in applause. Maya felt dazed as people approached to congratulate her, to ask about her process, to inquire about future work. It was overwhelming and wonderful and terrifying all at once. Hours later, after the last guest had departed and only Maya and Elaine remained in the gallery, the reality of the evening began to sink in. "I can't believe it," Maya said, collapsing onto a chair in Elaine's office. "They actually liked my work. They bought my work." Elaine smiled as she tallied the sales on her computer. "They didn't just like it, Maya, they loved it. And now the hard part begins." Maya looked up. "What do you mean?" "Success brings its own challenges," Elaine explained. "You have commissions to fulfill, a reputation to build, and most importantly, you need to keep creating authentic work even as the pressure increases." Maya nodded slowly. "I hadn't thought about that. I was so focused on just getting to this point. Many artists struggle with the transition from obscurity to recognition," Elaine said. "But I have faith in you. Your vision is strong enough to withstand success." Maya thought about the pieces she'd created for the exhibition, each one born from genuine observation and feeling, not from a desire to please others or fit a certain mold. Could she maintain that authenticity now that people were paying attention? "I should get home," Maya said finally. "I want to start on the hotel commission while the ideas are fresh." Elaine handed her an envelope. "Your portion of tonight's sales minus the advance I gave you. There's quite a bit more than you might expect." Maya opened the envelope and stared at the check inside. The amount was more than she would have earned in 6 months at the cafe. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll use it wisely," Elaine advised. "Maybe find a better apartment with good light for painting. Set up a proper studio. Take care of yourself so you can continue to create." On the bus ride home, Maya felt as though she were floating between 2 worlds, the life she had known, with its financial struggles and stolen moments of creativity, and this new life opening before her, full of possibility but also expectation. She looked out the window at the city sliding by, seeing it with the same eyes but from a different position. No longer was she just passing through these streets on her way to serve others. Now she moved through the world as an artist, someone whose vision had value, whose perspective mattered. The realization was both empowering and humbling. People had connected with her work not because it was technically perfect. She knew she still had much to learn, but because it was honest. Because she had shown them something true about the world they shared. As the bus neared her stop, Maya made a silent promise to herself. No matter what success might come, she would remain faithful to that honesty. She would continue to notice what others overlooked, to honor the unnoticed moments that made up a life. The next morning, Maya woke early, her mind already swimming with ideas for new pieces. For the first time in years, she didn't have to rush to a shift at the cafe. Her time was her own, a luxury that felt almost decadent after so long. She made coffee and stood by her window, watching the neighborhood come to life. A mother walking her child to school. An elderly man carefully watering the potted plants on his balcony. A delivery driver pausing to stretch his back between stops. Ordinary people living ordinary lives. Each moment a small masterpiece waiting to be recognized. Maya picked up her sketchbook and began to draw. 3 years had passed since Maya's first exhibition at Winter Gallery. The morning sun streamed through the large windows of her new studio, illuminating canvases in various stages of completion. The space was a converted warehouse unit in the arts district, a far cry from the tiny apartment where she had once pinned sketches to the walls. Maya stood before her newest piece, a large canvas that would be the centerpiece of her upcoming solo exhibition. Her phone buzzed on the work table beside her, but she ignored it, focused on the final touches of a painting that had consumed her thoughts for weeks. The piece showed the interior of Café Luminoso, but reimagined as a place where time flowed visibly, like water, The customers and staff appeared in various states of motion, some sharp and clear, others blurred as they moved through their lives, all connected by invisible threads of light that Maya had spent days perfecting. Only when she stepped back, satisfied with the morning's work, did Maya check her phone. 3 missed calls from Elaine and a text. "Call me when you can." Big news, Maya smiled. In the years since her first show, Elaine had become not just her gallery representative, but a close friend. The big news calls had become more frequent as Maya's reputation grew in the art world. Last month, it had been an invitation to participate in a prestigious international exhibition. Before that, a feature in a major art magazine. She called Elaine back while washing paint from her brushes. "There you are," Elaine answered on the first ring. "Where have you been?" "Working," Maya replied. "What's the big news?" "The Museum of Modern Art wants to include 2 of your pieces in their upcoming exhibition on contemporary urban life," Elaine said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "It's a major show, Maya, career-defining." Maya's hand stilled in the sink. The Museum of Modern Art. She had visited there as a teenager, looking at the works of famous artists, never imagining her own paintings might one day hang on those walls. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Completely serious. They specifically requested night shift and morning regulars. I told them you'd need to approve since night shift is in your personal collection, but I assumed you'd say yes." "Of course," Maya said. "Yes, absolutely." After finishing the call, Maya sat on her paint-splattered stool trying to process the news. 3 years ago, she had been taking orders and carrying plates, sketching on napkins during her breaks. Now her work was being recognized by one of the most prestigious art institutions in the country. The journey hadn't been easy. After her first successful exhibition, Maya had struggled with the pressure of expectations, both others and her own. There had been moments of doubt, paintings destroyed in frustration, nights when sleep wouldn't come because her mind was too full of images demanding to be created. But through it all, she had held on to the promise she'd made to herself, to remain honest in her work, to continue seeing the beauty in ordinary moments. That commitment had guided her through the challenging transition from unknown server to recognized artist. Maya glanced at the clock. It was almost noon, time for her to head to Café Luminoso for her weekly ritual. The cafe had changed since Maya's time working there. Pete had retired last year, selling the business to Lou, who had renovated the space while keeping its essential character intact. The menu had been updated, the lighting improved, but the heart of the place remained the same, a gathering spot for the neighborhood, a place where lives intersected over coffee and conversation. Maya pushed open the door, setting off the familiar chime. The lunch rush was in full swing, with every table occupied and the buzz of conversation filling the air. "Maya," called Lou from behind the counter. "Your table's ready." She smiled and made her way to the corner table that Lou always kept reserved for her on Wednesdays. Her old section when she had worked here, now her favorite spot to observe and sketch. A young server approached with a knowing smile. "The usual?" she asked. Maya nodded. "Thanks, Zoe." As Zoe went to get her coffee and sandwich, Maya pulled out her sketchbook, not the fancy leather-bound one she used in her studio, but a simple spiral-bound pad similar to the one she had carried in her apron pocket years ago. Some of her best ideas still came from these weekly visits. Though her life had changed dramatically, the cafe remained a wellspring of inspiration. Here, away from the pressures of galleries and museums, Maya could reconnect with what had first drawn her to art, the desire to capture fleeting moments of humanity. Zoe returned with her order. "New exhibition coming up, right?" she asked, setting down the coffee. "Lou mentioned it. Next month," Maya confirmed. "You should come to the opening." "I will if I'm not working," Zoe promised, "though I'd probably just stand in the corner like you used to do at your first show." Maya laughed. "How do you know about that?" "Lou tells all us servers about you," Zoe admitted. "You're like the cafe legend, the server who became a famous artist. He uses you to inspire us to follow our dreams." Maya felt a blush rise to her cheeks. "I'm hardly famous." "Famous enough," Zoe insisted. "Plus, your painting over the register brings in customers. People come just to see it." The painting Zoe referred to was one Maya had created specially for Lou when he bought the cafe, a tribute to Pete and all the servers who had worked there over the years. It showed the cafe at dawn, empty of customers but full of possibility, with ghostly images of staff preparing for the day ahead. I'm glad it's good for business, Maya said with a smile. As Zoe moved on to other tables, Maya opened her sketchbook and began to draw. Her hand moved quickly across the page, capturing the gesture of a woman tucking hair behind her ear, the concentrated expression of a man working on his laptop, the easy camaraderie of two elderly friends sharing a dessert. These quick sketches would never hang in a museum, but they were the foundation of everything Maya created. The practice of seeing, truly seeing the world around her was what had transformed her from a tired server with a hobby into an artist with a voice that people wanted to hear. Midway through her lunch, Maya noticed someone new enter the cafe, a woman in her early 20s with paint-stained fingers and tired eyes. She wore the black uniform of a nearby restaurant and carried a notebook similar to Maya's. The woman ordered coffee to go, and while waiting, pulled out her notebook and quickly sketched something, perhaps the hanging plants by the window, or the pattern of light on the counter. Whatever it was, her focus was complete, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. Maya felt a jolt of recognition so strong it almost took her breath away. She knew that look, that desperate stealing of creative moments between shifts. She had lived it for years. When the woman's coffee arrived, she tucked her notebook away and turned to leave. On impulse, Maya stood up. "Excuse me," she called, approaching the woman. "I couldn't help noticing you sketching." The woman looked startled, then embarrassed. "Just a habit," she said with a shrug. "Nothing serious. May I see?" Maya asked gently. After a moment's hesitation, the woman opened her notebook. The sketch was rough but showed remarkable attention to detail, the exact curve of the barista's arm as he steamed milk, the steam itself rising in delicate wisps. "This is really good," Maya said, meaning it. "Do you sketch often?" "Whenever I can," the woman admitted. "Between shifts on buses, late at night when I should be sleeping." She gave a self-conscious laugh. "Probably a waste of time, but I can't seem to stop." "It's not a waste," Maya said firmly. "Not if it matters to you." The woman studied Maya more carefully. "You're her, aren't you? The server who became an artist. Your painting's over there." She nodded toward the register. Maya smiled. "I'm Maya, and yes, that's my story." "I'm Tina," the woman said. "I've heard about you from the staff here. Never thought I'd actually meet you. Do you want to be an artist, Tina?" Maya asked. Tina looked down at her notebook, then back at Maya. "I want to, but I don't know how. I mean, I work doubles most days just to make rent. I don't have time for art school or connections in galleries." "Neither did I," Maya said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card, something she still wasn't used to having. "I have a studio a few blocks from here. If you'd like, you could stop by sometime. I could look at more of your work, maybe point you towards some resources." Tina stared at the card as if it might disappear. "Are you serious?" "Completely. No pressure, but the offer's open." Maya smiled. "Sometimes we all need someone to see potential in us before we can fully see it in ourselves." After Tina left, clearly late for her shift but clutching Maya's card like a treasure, Maya returned to her table. She found herself drawing not the current cafe scene, but Tina's face, the mixture of exhaustion, hope, and surprise that had transformed her features during their brief conversation. Later that afternoon, Maya returned to her studio to find an email from the Museum of Modern Art with details about the upcoming exhibition. As she read through the prestigious list of participating artists, names she had once studied in art books, a sense of wonder washed over her. The journey from that tired server sketching after midnight to this moment had been unpredictable, challenging, and beautiful. And now perhaps she could help someone else begin a similar journey. Maya turned to the large canvas she'd been working on that morning, her reimagined view of Café Luminoso, where time flowed like water and lives intersected in moments of connection. She picked up her brush and added one final detail. In the corner, a server with paint-stained fingers looking up from her notebook with newfound hope in her eyes. The piece was complete. Maya stepped back and titled it Full Circle.